Okay, so hi everyone, welcome to this class. Thank you very much for joining. Today we're going to be talking about dream magic, Draumagaldur in Icelandic. So let's begin. We're going to go over a bit of animism in Icelandic tradition and why it's such an important theme within Icelandic folk magic. We're going to talk about some staves, some old ones, and then a couple of contemporary ones of my own. We're going to talk about Jón Arnarsson and the Galdrabækur, like the magic books, and one of the guys who was recording all the folklore. We're going to go over some divinatory plant materia that we can use with these staves in our dream magic. Some techniques, and then oh, I've written that twice, but yeah, traditional and contemporary staves, and then some Galdur incantations, and the way that we can use words and Galdur being verbal structured magic and staves as well to sort of round out our dream magic and all magic really. So yeah, animism in Iceland, it's really sort of the central theme for all of Icelandic folk magic and tradition really. The belief that there are spirits in everything. In the rocks you have the hidden people, the Huldufólk who live in the rocks. You have trolls made of rocks. You have trolls that are not made of rocks. You have all sorts of spirits that live within the land and should be shown respect and should be treated right. And this is not this isn't like so important for this particular class, but it's I always do like a bit of background on the context of the country where this stuff is coming from. And so, names are remembered over centuries, both places and people, and therefore ghosts as well. And Landvættir, the Landvættir are the genius loci of various places, and even the hierarchy of small field you're in and spirit that rules that, and then larger county maybe and spirit that rules this, and then corner of the country, and you go all the way up through the hierarchy until you get the four main Landvættir of Iceland, which if anyone has seen Icelandic krona coins, it's the like the four, like the giant, the bull, the eagle, and the dragon that are on the back of the of all the coins of the currency, like even today. So that's quite cool. But yeah, we have fylgjur, we have our sort of fetch animal, not always animal as well, that lives within us and without us. Yeah, we have plant spirits, and I'll talk a little bit about foraging and sort of the etiquette about that, but I'm sure most people probably know hack and slash stuff is not so, doing this sort of like, what's the word, like taking too much from an area is not a good thing, obviously in most places, but in Iceland where there's so, like compared to other countries where there's so little sort of plant life and things growing, it's not good to be doing this in the first place. But then also when we take animism into account and add the spirit of this plant that maybe wants to be spoken to in a certain way or approached in a certain way or harvested in a certain way, then that's where it becomes quite important for us to know what we can take and what we can't take, and how we're supposed to take what we do take. But yeah, and the other sort of last thing, just regards to the basic animism overview, we have the directions in Icelandic folk magic, but it's more looking at sort of the also through like the heathen Norse pagan view of these four dwarves who hold up the corners of the sky being the skull of Ymir, the giant, like the primordial giant that was slain by the Norse, the Æsir and Vanir, that were, yeah, he was killed and scattered around, and this is what makes up Midgard, but also like the other worlds. So it's very interesting when you sort of zoom out through the different layers of very grand mythology to like specific plant in a field. There is something that connects all of these things together. But yeah, so just like the sort of last thing of this is just before we do any sort of ceremony, whether it's picking plants, whether it's holding like more sort of actual ceremony in the nature, or leaving offerings or things like this, we always call on the four dwarves that hold up the corners of the sky, because if we're addressing them and they can hear us, then that means everything else within the four corners of the sky can hear us. And I'll talk a little bit about that maybe a little bit later if it feels really relevant, and if people want to know more, then I can talk more about that. But yeah, then the last thing is because everything has its own spirit and everything is free thinking and has its own will. You have plants that may be a certain specific plant within a species that you have just seen on the side of the road and you want to pick it. Maybe it doesn't want you to pick it. And we'll talk a little bit about like working out whether a plant wants to be taken or not. But also the dual nature of plants in Iceland. And not so many of the plants in this class have this dual nature. But for example, you have things like vetch, Lucia, I think is what its Latin name is. But this purple vetch that grows everywhere in Iceland, and it grows in quite a lot of the rest of the world as well. But it's ruled by both Jupiter and Saturn, which is contradictory, because it does one thing, but then it also does the opposite thing. And there are quite a lot of plants within Iceland that have this about them. And it's not, I mean, not just in Iceland, but it's quite a strong theme, which might also just be to do with the seasons in Iceland. We only really have summer and winter. And it's very, like it's, what's the word? I'm forgetting so many words in English, I'm sorry. The duality, like it's either summer and it's nice weather, or it's winter and it's horrible weather. And you have the 24 hours of daylight and near eternal darkness in the middle of winter. Especially if the weather is bad, then it's like you get maybe 1 hour of grey sky at the winter solstice. But yeah, so maybe this is all connected in with the nature is like this. Therefore, the plants have these natures. They have these virtues about them. They sort of reflect the micro macro thing, which is what a lot of magical herbalism tends to look at nowadays, which is very cool. But yeah, so we have Jón Árnason, the author of Þjóðsaga Ævintýri, which is the sort of like the collection of Icelandic folklore, and plant lore and weather lore, and really sort of everything that all of the people in the country, not just the countryside people, but all of the people in the country were very good at preserving all of these sort of stories and all of these random behaviors and habits and things, even through Christianity. Iceland was quite good at sort of keeping hold of a lot of stuff. So yeah, in 1862 he wrote this collection. This was after many years of traveling around the entire country and collecting all these stories. It is probably the best, well, without a doubt, for me it's the best. I'm a bit biased, but it is the best collection of all of the stories. And he also included a whole bunch of magical staves, which he doesn't go as much into detail around those, and I'm not sure if it was because it was 1862 and he was a bit more leaning towards being a man of science than a man of magic. But a lot of his other writing doesn't. It sounds as though it leans a bit more to him being more sort of believing in the magic. So it's a shame that he didn't gather as many staves, maybe from the countryside. But we do have plenty of other resources that I'm going to go through with you guys. About where all these staves come from and what manuscripts, and like when in time as well, because it's not normally what people would think of when they think of like Viking magic. But we'll go into that because that's the whole thing. But yeah, so most of the main sort of staves that people use nowadays, it's most likely that they were created by Christian priests, which is also super interesting, because that's not what Christian priests should be doing. They should be good, God-fearing people and not creating magical symbols. So it's very interesting to have this whole bunch of folk magic that essentially comes from priests. Yeah, there's a very interesting harmony. I think it's similar to the sort of duality of the seasons and the natures of things within Iceland, that you have very Christian priests who are practicing witchcraft, and they seem to be able to hold both these things at the same time, which I would say is pretty central to Icelandic folk magic. But it's also quite interesting that that's just the way that it happened. But yeah, lots of this book hasn't been translated into English. There's quite a few stories, like selected stories, that have been translated, which I think most books of Icelandic folk tales will be translations of this work. But it's more sort of the main stories that people will translate and then like rewrite slightly and publish again and again, which is a bit of a shame because there is so much in this book that's well, in this collection of books that is really amazing. So I'm hoping to eventually get through translating quite a few chunks of it and getting that out there to people. But yeah, so that's one of the main sources, and then we have manuscript sources. So we're going to go over. There's some staves from the Huld manuscript, which I think is the one that most people will be more familiar with. It's where we get the Vigdasir, and a few other staves that are more sort of commonly known about. It's from 1860, which a lot of people are not too happy to hear about when they think that they have a tattoo of a Viking compass, and you have to tell them that actually it's not a compass at all. It's also not Viking, because it's from 1860, so it's younger than it's younger than like quite a lot of other things within Icelandic folk magic, which doesn't mean that it doesn't work, because it does, and all of these staves work. But people get a little bit hung up on using sort of the most ancient, or most or what they believe to be the most ancient, when like one that you make yourself can work just as well. So yeah, whether it has the aesthetic that you're looking for or not, it's up to you to practice, I guess. But yeah, so yeah, the Huld is one of the main ones we'll look through, and then there's a couple from LBS 5472. There's a whole collection of 5 of these manuscripts within this number, which we won't look at all of it because there's a lot. But I'll post the links over on the last slide of this PowerPoint, and they'll also be in the email that will go out after this class. So you'll have access to all of these, not in English because they're scans of Icelandic manuscripts, but a lot of them just have the symbol, the stave, and then underneath like a very short description of it does this, or the name of the stave will tell you what it does. And there's quite a lot where Google Translate is terrible with Icelandic normally. There are quite a lot of these staves that are actually very easy to just put in Google Translate, and you get what they're supposed to do. And also then just experiment with them and see how they go, because there's a lot of trial and error in all of this, but that's also part of the fun, I think, for me at least. So yeah, so we're going to look through some of these staves, and then also some of my own. There are 2 that I mainly work with that are my own, that I've had quite a lot of success with, which I'm happy to share. And I would like, if people do want to try these staves that I've made, then I would love to hear feedback, because I find that to be feels quite nice and validating when the things that you've spent time making and practicing with and experimenting with also then work for other people. So that's nice. But yeah, so then within contemporary practice, it's still very much alive in Iceland. We have quite a lot of people who are we have quite a lot of people who would class themselves as witchy. There are quite a few ways that this sort of bleeds into more new agey stuff, which is not for me, but is for a bunch of other people, so that's fine. And yeah, there are families who have held traditions really for a very, very long time, and it's really cool. For me, coming from the UK, where the stuff is quite buried or forgotten, like I guess like much of Europe that was much more influenced by Christianity. It's quite cool for me to meet friends and hear about the thing that them and their family do once a year, and have a little fire and see the future or things like this. It's very cool, and it's very, all of these things are very it's common in Iceland that you'll start talking to someone about witchy stuff, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, my grandmother used to do this, and so we still do this," and it's very cool that this has survived also through all of Christianity, and even now with Iceland being a majority, especially within, I think it was 18 to 30, this age bracket. Most people within this age bracket are atheists now. So that's still interesting that they're still seemingly having success with this. Sorry, I'm just going to mute everyone. Yeah. So yeah. Also, the only other sort of main difference is that there was not really a big between mainland Europe and Iceland, is that there wasn't like a really deep fear of the devil in the way that there were in a lot of other countries, especially in Scandinavia. There was fear in trolls and draugar, which if people have played Skyrim maybe know as like the sort of Nordic zombies, which are, at least from I don't know, from the sagas and from older stories, it's very terrifying and it's very, very freaky. Modern folklore, as in modern, so from 1800 to now, this sort of folklore looks at these things a little bit differently. But that was where the fear lay for most people, in pissing off maybe their neighbor who was a wizard, rather than, oh, I'm terrified if I go out at night, I'm going to see the devil, or like see the devil dancing with people and he'll try and string me along. There are a few folk stories where the devil is having sort of rap-offs with people, but this is definitely more of a thing of someone who was much more influenced by Christianity is reading these stories where this is happening with trolls hundreds of years earlier, and then being like, oh, it's not a troll, it's the devil, because of course everything that might be nasty to Christianity is part of the devil. So yeah, but this fear of the devil didn't really exist, which makes it quite unique as a folk practice, because people have less qualms working with the sort of witch father figure. But yeah, but the main thing that people are scared of is winter, and the spirits that live in the middle of nowhere in winter. Like if anyone has seen The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, this pretty awful interpretation of Grilla, or Gryla as they called it in Sabrina. Grilla is the sort of the Christmas troll lady who is the mother of the Yule lads, who are the 13 trolly elf type people who visit kids and give them gifts over Christmas. But Grilla as a figure is pretty terrifying. And within folk practice, this is a thing of you're taught to respect the nature, for one, because it can kill you. If you go outside at winter, you can freeze and die. But also it's the sort of the thing of you respect the time of year, you respect the season, and you respect the spirits associated with the season. So Grilla comes out in winter, and she stalks the land, and she'll catch you if you slip up. So you have to be quite, within contemporary practice, you have to know not to maybe go out one night if there's a storm coming, because even though it's 2023 and we have a good rescue service, you still could just fall into a crevice in a lava field and never be seen again. So there's lots of scary stuff in Iceland, but it's also very beautiful for people who want to visit. So we'll go into the plant materia. There's a few that I'm pretty sure most of these are common in all of Northern Europe. There's a few that might not be as common, and there's quite a few that are in North America as well. So most people should have access to these things, but if not, and you want to find something that's a substitute, then we can go over this at the end, or you can send me a message and I'll try and advise as much as I can. But yeah, so the first plant that we're going to talk about is Draumagrass. This is field horsetail. It translates to dream grass. It's a very old species, which is cool. And yeah, the habit you should be following when you're picking it is to pick it like yeah, so on Jonsmessunótt, which is June 24th, the night before the Feast of St. John, or sometimes also the night of the Feast of St. John. So it's either 24th or 25th. We, in my group, we utilize both of these nights, also because it's light, like almost 24/7. So to call it a night really is not super correct. But this is one of the plants that is best picked on these days for this sort of work. Otherwise, just a lunar time is best. So yeah, any hour of the moon on a Monday is really ideal. Even within maybe the hour of the moon on a Wednesday, because maybe there's a mercurial aspect to it with things like dreams involving spirits bringing you messages and a need to have a smooth communication. So Mercury would be a good planet to utilize for this. But yeah, then also May 16th is supposed to be the best day to pick it. Although recently I've not seen any that's like actually grown enough to be picked on May 16th, probably because of climate change. That's not great. But yeah, traditionally you would gather this plant and then you would dry it in a Bible. If you don't have a Bible, then any other powerful book, your own grimoire is a good idea. Like I would dry mine in my own grimoire, just because it's a pretty nice chunk. I don't know if people can actually see my camera, but I'll just show it at least. Yeah, like a book that has some sort of feel to it is a good idea. But yeah, a Bible also works perfectly. You would dry it in this Bible or in this book, and then it's traditionally it says place it within the like in the hair. Like I don't know if they would have braided it into your hair, but when it gets dry, it crumbles really easily, and it just sort of falls apart and powders itself basically, which makes it a really good plant to use in powders for this sort of thing. But otherwise, it's not ideal to just have it in your hair when you sleep. So I would put it in a little charm bag basically, and then put it either within like a regular pillow in the charm bag or within like a proper dream pillow. And we'll go into these a little bit later because that's one. Dream pillows is one aspect of sort of 90s, new agey, like more sort of eclectic wicker sort of vibe that I actually really enjoy because I think they're really fun. But yeah, it's also supposed to protect against bodily sickness, which could mean, like, based on this, the wording of it, it could mean really anything. I wouldn't recommend actually eating it. Maybe bite it and then spit it out. Like, it's not poison, but it's not like, this isn't a plant that people would eat. So I don't recommend eating it, but carrying it on your person may also help against, may also protect against bodily sickness. And working it into, I feel like that's such a vague term, bodily sickness, that you could work it into a bunch of different health, like charms for health and for healing, and it would probably do what it's supposed to. I haven't tried that yet, so I haven't had a chance to experiment with that yet, but I will and see how it goes. But the folklore is there. The next plant is starry saxifrage. This is Stjörnusteinbrjótur, which is quite a mouthful, which it literally translates to starry saxifrage anyway. Saxifrage. I don't know how you're supposed to say this word actually, but it's pretty common in Iceland. It's also pretty common, I think, in other bits of Northern Europe. But one substitute for this would be chickweed. I know chickweed grows like loads of other places. It looks very similar. It has these little white star-shaped flowers, and it's lunar, so you can use that as a good substitute. But yeah, this saxifrage is it's a lunar plant. It's also ruled by water, so both of these things really help us use it in dream magic and divination as well. But yeah, I would pick this the same as the dream grass, maybe on within the lunar time is best. Maybe on Jonsmessa as well, just because it is the day of picking basically everything, or the night. It's not a dark night, but picking it during the night also would be beneficial, so that you're not having any sort of influence from solar virtues of the day, because you want it to be as lunar and as subconscious as possible, basically. Yeah, you want to gather them up, put them in a pillow or a charm bag as well. These ones don't. I mean, they're delicate flowers, but like they're not going to crumble themselves. So this is also fine, probably to put in your hair if you want. Um, maybe you can like pick a bunch of them and weave them into some sort of crown with like a yarrow or something that's a bit stronger, and see how that would work. Because there's plenty of fun ways that we can utilize plants that maybe we wouldn't think of. But yeah, so this it works to reveal hidden things and uncover the answers to questions. So when we use this in our dream divination, if we're working, I mean, we don't need to necessarily be working with a specific spirit, but if we're using these staves and these herbs together and calling out and saying, okay, I need to receive this information, spirits, please bring this to me. It's a perfect aid for this, and it will smooth the path so things can come to you quicker. The next one is blauber, it's blueberry, or bog bilberry, technically. This is the main blueberry in Iceland. There are two types. I would use both of them, really, because they're both just as good as each other. But yeah, the main, there's a few different ways you can work this blueberry, but the main thing that I would do is pick a bunch of the leaves. Pick the berries too and let the berries dry and put them in charm bags, but you want to get a bunch of the leaves, let them dry out, maybe grind them or powder them if you can, and use this as incense, like within a room. This is what people used to do in Iceland. They would burn these leaves within a room before they went to sleep. So this is a perfect ally for dream magic and dream divination, because it's preparing the space for you before you're doing anything. And adding, I guess it's the thing of adding layers to our spellwork so it's more effective. But yeah, I would gather a bunch of these leaves. Same lunar or mercurial combo would be a good idea. But yeah, just gather the leaves up, dry them out, and burn them. They don't smell amazing, but they do what they're supposed to do, so that's good. You could also maybe try try tea of the leaves, maybe even the leaves and the fruits. I'm not sure how that would go, but it's all edible, so it should be fine. And then for protection as well, you can dry a couple of the berries, put them in a charm bag, and this is this is a spell that I made. But you would speak this over like a charm bag of dried blueberries, just for good health and protection. If anyone wants to hear it, it's blauberjaster, blauberjasalt, vernaðu mig svo ég líði lífsglad. And it's just, you can say it in English, say it in Icelandic if you want, whatever. It's a nice chant. I found it very effective. So if you want to use that for protection, then feel free. But that's not what this class is about. Sorry. So the next one is freyugras. It's alpine meadow rue. This one I wouldn't use in tea because it's I think it irritates skin and stuff. So it shouldn't be one that you're going to put in your body. But you can pick it, and traditionally it was picked and then laid in, put in like a bowl of water for 3 days, and then you put it in your pillow. Dream, the dream of. There's workings where you're using it to dream of your future lover, or there's workings where you're using it to just dream of what you wish, basically. Which sometimes I feel like there's a nice crossover. But it's called Freyugras, like grass of Freya. It's Venusian and lunar, I would say, more because it's associated with, although to me, Freya is very much not just the goddess of love. There's a lot more to her than that. There is the thing of Freya being assimilated with the Virgin Mary in Iceland, and then it becomes more that she's not like this vengeful war goddess. She's more of a sort of gentle, loving figure, which for me is Frigg instead of Freya. But they may also have been exactly the same goddess, and then just stories diverged. So who knows? But yeah, I would, if you want to use it traditionally, then just pick it within a lunar time or day, and then lay it in water. When you're laying it in water, like what I would do, because within the sort of tools of the tradition that I'm part of, we have our bowl, like askur is what we call it, like because it was traditionally made of ash wood. You would have a bowl. Sometimes you'd even like inscribe like staves for divination and things in the bottom of the bowl, and then fill it with water and put it in there. I've tried it like in different ways of like having it sit in water in like a dark room or like a dark space where it's not seeing the sun. That's been more effective for me. So I would try that instead of like just leaving it in a bowl where maybe the sun will come. And for me, it's like maybe that's the thing of it's not then being sort of tainted by opposite virtues. When you have like something you want to use that's really lunar, if you have the sun coming in, maybe it's going to sort of take away its effectiveness a little bit or something. So like I would leave it in a darkened place, basically, maybe even in a cupboard within a bowl, and just sit there for 3 days and then take it out, let it dry a little bit, and then put it in your pillow. And you can even speak over it if you want. You could pick it up and say, okay, I want to know this, give me this. But if you're going to use this at the same time as maybe a stave with a candle, there's like a bunch of ways we can use all these things together, and I'm going to get onto that in a bit. But yeah, and then you can also add it to incenses for Freya and Virgin Mary as well, which is fun. The next one is Malviat, which is meadowsweet. This one you can find like I think pretty much all the northern hemisphere. It's a healing plant. It's used a lot in medicine. There's what's the chemical? Begins with a C. There's like a painkiller chemical within it. Salicin. Oh no, with an S, maybe it's salicin or something like this. But it's for pain relief. So you can use it for healing, but also you can use it for sleep and aiding sleep, and also dream magic. It grows by water. It's very like it needs wet areas. So to me, it's then ruled by water if it grows in a wet area. It's got these these white flowers, which then to me is a lunar flower as well. So that a lot of these things sort of line up. Loads of folklore from different places also puts it in this sort of realm of being a lunar plant that will help with dream divination. So yeah, I would, as with most of these plants, harvest it at a lunar or mercurial mix of times. Speak over it if you want. You can also burn it with blueberry in a room before divination. Or what you can do is there's a dream divination sleep aid tea that I would normally make, and it's it's just the flowers of meadowsweet. Like I would like dry them first and then put them in a little tea strainer. Like loose tea strainer, and then let it sit for maybe 10 minutes. It's like, to me, it doesn't taste amazing. So like I'd add some honey, but like it does the thing it's supposed to do. So maybe the taste doesn't matter so much to people. But yeah, I would drink a tea of this flower, maybe with a stave like drawn with a Sharpie on the mug, or if that's permanent, maybe that's not ideal. But if you want a mug that you drink this specific tea out to help you when you sort of set up your like steps to get into this space to do dream magic and dream divination, then maybe that's a good thing to do, to have a special cup that you've drawn a stave on, and then you drink this meadowsweet tea from it. But yeah, you're supposed to drink it maybe an hour or so before going to bed. I wouldn't drink it like straight before bed, because I think it's diuretic as well. So then you'll need to wake up to pee, and you won't be in a good, relaxed state to do some dream divination. The next is Tunfivit, which is dandelion. Dandelion is like, it's traditionally solar, but you can use it for dream divination. You could make a tea of the roots, leaves, flowers, which is cool. And then you don't even necessarily have to drink it, because I know that the root can sometimes work as a coffee substitute. I don't know if it's actually full of caffeine, or if there's some similar chemical in it that will wake you up. But I would put all these together and then just inhale the steam that's coming off the infusion instead of drinking it. But it's also like it's very good for you to drink anyway. So if you drink dandelion root regularly, then go ahead. But yeah, I would also say because the flower itself, it's very solar. it looks like a little sun emblem anyway. I would wait until it's the white seed head, because that to me is a lot more, has a lot more lunar expression within it. It's a white orb, and what is the moon if not a white orb? So to me, that makes sort of much more sense to use it. Pick it within a lunar time when it's gone to seed, because that makes much more sense to me, I think, to do that instead of use something that's more typically the opposite virtue than what you want. Otherwise, just leaves is fine, because the leaves don't change, so that should be all good. But yeah, sometimes it's burned with along with coltsfoot. Tuslago fafara is the name in Latin, if that is more helpful to people than the English folk name. But sometimes it's bound along with these to help us get into sort of deeper, like often deeper oracular or trance stuff, but that's like waking divination stuff rather than dream divination stuff. But maybe experiment with dandelion if you have a bunch around you. Maybe it's a good idea to see how it works for you. And the next one, I think this is the last one, yeah, is Blauklocke. This is harebell. There are so many different types of harebell. I don't know necessarily if all of them are fine to drink in some sort of tea, but like I would suggest more to harvest them and put them in a dream pillow, because they're very useful. Like they're saturnine to me, and they sort of help you get your feet off the ground. I know in UK, like in Icelandic folklore, it's more of a plant of like you use this to get into deeper trance stuff. But within British folklore, there's a bunch of fairy stuff around them, being like that these are the plants that ring like bells to warn the rabbits that the people are coming, which is cute. But there's like fey stuff in there too. I use them for divination. Sometimes when we're walking, like in east of Iceland, there's loads of these. And so sometimes when we're walking around in the east, we'll just sort of like suck on them, like suck the nectar out of them. And it helps you sort of get your feet off the ground a little bit, even consciously. I don't think there's anything like actually hallucinogenic or psychoactive within these flowers, but at least they have this sort of connection. There's like within Iceland, there's a bunch of they're growing in lots of areas where there are reindeer, and the only area within Iceland where reindeer, after they were imported, the only area where they survived. And for me, reindeer are very much like one of these animals to do with more sort of Sami shamanic type practices of reindeer that fly, because you have like Sami shamanic practices in Finland and Sweden and Norway, where the sort of shaman would have drunken reindeer urine that had, like, after they'd eaten flower mushrooms, and then they would drink the urine of the reindeer after they've eaten these mushrooms. And it's a like a trance aid thing. Not that I'm suggesting people do that, because that's also like, who's going to be able to find reindeer urine? That's so random. But yeah, these, if you can get hold of these flowers, I'm pretty sure there's nothing actually toxic to them, and nothing that is going to like alter your mind in any way, like physically, but at least magically they have a very nice feel and effect if you're just sucking on the nectar from them as you're walking through the fields and in the highlands of Iceland or wherever else they grow. But yeah, otherwise just pick them, dry them out, put them in a charm bag, harvest them at a Saturnine time if you more sort of want to go off in your dreams and maybe do sort of like, yeah, spirit flight within your dreams and things like this. Otherwise, mercurial and lunar times for dream divination of other kinds. But yeah, I would pick these whenever you, or pick, not pick all of them in the area, but pick a few of them whenever you see them, because they're really nice, and also pressed in books, they look very cute. So yeah, yeah, that's all the plants. And so next, if it's gonna work, we have the magical staves, the Galdrastaðir. The last thing before we go into the staves, setting the mood is very important. This illustration on the left is from my friend Jiva, Striga artist. She did the illustrations for my plant magic book. She's within my tradition. She's brilliant. She's wonderful. Just to shout her out. Incense is very important, and incense can be one of the main sort of things, as well as tea, to sort of help you get into the mindset that you need to be in, to get into deeper sort of dream work and trance work as well. And it's the thing of having something that sort of separates your mundane regular day with then this next part of your day, which will be about this witchcraft that you're doing. If you're not super inclined naturally to a neuromancy, like dream divination, if you're not supernaturally, like if you don't have it like as good as some other people, because I don't, like I'm good at it now after practice, and I have experimented with a bunch of different stuff to get to where I'm at with it. Some people I know are just like, oh yeah, I had this dream last night, and here's exactly what's going to happen to you for the next like 3 weeks or whatever. It's very cool. I'm a bit envious of that because it's not my gift, but some people don't need help, but if you do need help, it's completely fine, and that's what tea and incense is for, and charm bags as well. So I would say if you want to go sort of traditionally Icelandic with it, then blueberry leaves are the best. Blueberry leaves and meadowsweet are the best to burn. But if you don't have access to that, then herbs like mugwort are fantastic. Like mugwort is one of the best. Mugwort and yarrow, I think, together are probably some of the best, two of the best like dream divination herbs. But I didn't include those in this lesson because they're very commonly, like, information about them is very common everywhere, and they're also they're a lot more common in stuff that's a bit more specific to Iceland. Mugwort also doesn't actually grow in Iceland, so I have no Iceland-specific folklore for mugwort. But yeah, a tea of mugwort and yarrow, an incense of these, an incense of blueberry leaves. I'm sure people have other herbs they use for this sort of dream divination as well that will work most likely perfectly with the staves that we're going to go on to talking about. If you wanted a specifically Icelandic thing, then maybe you could also try and make an oil from the sorry, someone has just joined. Okay, cool. You could try and make an oil from any of the herbs that I've talked about, and anoint candles with it, or anoint yourself with it if you know that it's not an oil that will, with any chemicals that it's extracted from the plant that are going to irritate you. Yarrow oil is so easily made. Yarrow is so easy to find through so many new agey and witchy shops online as well. You just buy a small pack of yarrow, just infuse it in some oil, and you have a perfect oil to use for candle anointing, and also for yourself. So yeah. So we're going to talk about some staves from the Huld manuscript first. I will link all of the manuscripts to, or send you a link to all the manuscripts. But yeah, this is typically the traditional way that it's used, is to carve it into some silver or white leather on Jónsmessunótt. That's quite hard to come by unless you know people who have access to leather or can easily find dyed leather somewhere. Because I don't know if, like, I mean, it's probably supposed to be naturally white leather, but who has that? Like, nobody has that around them. So I would say in place of that, then yeah, use virgin parchment, or use any paper also should work, because it's about the symbol's power itself. It's not necessarily about the material that it's on, although that can help, and I'll talk about a little bit more. Yeah, traditionally it was carved into silver or white leather when the sun was at its lowest on Jónsmessunótt. But you don't need to be that strict with it, because you can use it if you want to do divination work on a Monday, dream divination work on a Monday. Then that's perfect, because you just need the lunar time, and I think it was like this was the most powerful day. The sun doesn't set, but they were like, okay, we need the sun to be at its lowest and have the least influence that it could have on the land, so we can utilize this sort of dream magic that's much more ruled by the moon. So yeah, any full moon also would be a great time to draw this out or carve this on something. Then yeah, I would you can carve it into wood. If you're going to carve it into wood, I would use some sort of wood from a tree that has good lunar virtues or is used in divination. I can't really think of a good example. If it's to do with maybe some sort of divination involving spirits that are going to come and give you information, maybe ash would be a good idea, because Yggdrasil, the tree of world tree, being an ash tree, that might add like some little virtue that helps smoothen connection and traveling up and down the tree, and spirits coming to you from other places and telling you things. Maybe that will help. Birch wood may be a good idea, or birch bark, just because it's watery and it has that connection to subconscious and to this sort of yeah, divination. But yeah, or like maybe draw it onto some pottery, like carve it into some pottery and then fire it, and you'll have like a perfect little bowl with this stave on, that you can then maybe lay the Frebras, the alpine meadow rue. If you find this specific plant, lay it in there. Or just make infusions of mugwort in it, or make infusions of dandelion that you'll then inhale in this special pot that you have this dream stave on. We'll sew it into a pillow. Yeah, dream pillows I love. If you want to have like, because to me a dream pillow is very 90s. Yeah, I love it. Like, to me it's this image of having like a really sort of cheap looking purple or pink satin pillow that you've sewn this symbol into. And I love that. If it looks cheap, that's great. I love it. Because if it works, that's fine. But yeah, if you want to do this, then maybe this is probably one of the easiest staves to sew into a pillow, or even a small charm bag that you then fill with materia and put in the pillow. But yeah, so carving it into skin or leather on young's person, that's a good idea if you want to do that. But if you don't have access to that, that's completely fine. You can also use it on a candle. There's almost all of these staves you can work with a candle or a charm bag or both, or even tattoo if you want to go that far. So yeah, there's a bunch of different ways that all these things can work. But yeah, I would then, once this is carved onto something or drawn onto a bag or sewn into a bag, I would then sleep on it and add in things like this field horsetail or meadow rue or any of the other herbs that we talked about. Put all of these things in a bag, or any herbs that you work with anyway for dream divination. Put them in this bag, and then put them in your pillow. There'll be a lot of this of here are the methods with the pillows and the dream bag, the pillows and the charm bags and the candles. And it's pretty much like, here are all the symbols that you can use with these things. Some are more complicated than others. Like the middle one on this page actually is like, I don't know really of anyone who's going to have the time and patience to sit and sew this into a bag. But if you do, I'm sure it'll look lovely. So that's nice. But yeah, so these next three, I think there's 3 and 2. Yeah. So these next 5 staves come from this collection of staves. It's quite a big collection. And yeah, it's from between 1870 and 1918, found or / possibly collected by Jonas Jonsson, which is a very strong Icelandic name. But yeah, any of these 3 can be carved into candles or maybe talismans or amulets. If you're working with ceramics, maybe it's a good idea to make a little disc of clay and then carve these symbols into it, and then you've got like a small little thing that you can wear or hold in your hand or put in your pillow. redden with blood typically is the thing that I'll talk about a little bit at the end as well for working with staves. But maybe that's a perfect example. Or just use parchment paper, draw them on parchment paper if you want to work in maybe like some silver ink if you have some, because then it's like, just the color as well makes it extra lunar. So it's just another way we can sort of add more layers into what we're doing that correspond and that help draw what we're trying to achieve closer to us. So yeah, work any of these into charm bags for sure. Fill them with materia. Yeah, so sew these into like little pouches or charm bags with white or blue thread, because these two colors work for what we're doing. They're associated with dream magic, so that's great. And then yeah, if you want to work in some sort of some Saturnine time, some lunar time, ideally a combo of lunar and Saturnine or lunar and mercurial would be a good idea, as with all of the things that I've spoken about today. And then yeah, the last of these three, it's traditionally worked to reveal the identity of the thief. But the way that a lot of these work is that you'll carve the stave and then it's sort of like wish magic, where you'll carve the stave and then you'll be like, okay, this stave, now you're going to tell me who did this or what they look like or what their name is. And it's what you're doing is I like to call it wish magic, because it's like you're asking it a question, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the question of like, yeah, tell me who this person was, because if you get an answer from asking a question, we've all, like within our group, we've experimented with these sort of things quite a lot, of like, we ask completely unrelated things to like thief finding, and we've had answers come to us by using these. So it's I would argue that quite a lot of these thief finding or thief identifying staves are not strictly about identifying thieves, more just about getting an answer. So yeah, then I would, if you're carving these into really anything, reddening staves with blood is a thing. You don't necessarily have to do that. I'm going to talk a little bit at the end about what you can do instead if you don't want to use blood. But traditionally, staves are carved and then little prick of the finger, and then you smear some blood across it. And normally you would smear some blood across it while you're then singing or chanting or speaking some sort of more sort of formal instruction, like the Galdur, you're speaking or singing or chanting this over the thing, to really sort of like, you've paid the cost with the blood and now you're like, okay, here's exactly what you're going to do. But we can talk about that a bit more at the end if people aren't 100% sure on that. Yeah, these last two, the bottom one, these two are together, they're used together. But yeah, I would utilize them in the same way as any of the previous ones. They work nicely on candles. I think I have a picture of the candle on this slideshow, because I'm actually on holiday at the moment, so I don't have the candle with me. But I'm pretty sure, is it there? Yes, okay, perfect. I'll show you guys that in a minute. But these ones can work perfectly on candles. I have a wax pen, which I found in, what was it, Flying Tiger, like a sort of just a random store where they sell loads of stuff cheap. I don't know, I haven't seen wax pens be a thing that I've not seen them sold anywhere else, but I'm sure there's some specialist place where you can get wax pens to decorate candles with. They come in all different colors and it's really nice. They work really well. And then you don't have to sit there and sort of carve a candle, and especially maybe the candles where you have, it's a white candle inside and the last, like, just dipped it in different colored ink at the last sort of stage, and so then you have like a skin on the outside of the candle that's a different color ink. So then when you go to cut ink, a different color wax, so then when you go to carve into it, if you're using a knife or something, you push a bit hard, and then the second, like the outer layer sort of starts to come off, and it can completely ruin the pattern you're trying to create. If you're using cheap candles. If you're not using cheap candles, I'm sure it's fine. Maybe I should invest in better candles, to be honest. But yeah, this wax pen works really well. But if not, like a white candle and a Sharpie is probably good enough, as long as you're letting the stave dry and then you're reddening it with your blood. I haven't had any aesthetically, obviously it looks much nicer to have a wax candle or to carve it into a candle with a knife or something. But like, if it works, it works. And I've used Sharpies and white candles and had, I've had good results from these experiments. So like for me, if it works, it works, and you're absolutely more than welcome to use a Sharpie instead of some sort of expensive thing. But yeah, as with all of these things, do it within a lunar time, maybe a mercurial time too. These staves are simply just called dream staves. I've used them for asking questions and receiving answers. I've used them for helping me recall dreams. I've used them for, yeah, like having, getting the answers. What was it? There's a third thing. Getting the answers, sleeping better. And then like, yeah, sorry, yeah, sleeping better, getting answers to questions, and then actually having dreams when I sleep. So I've had experience, like positive experience with this. So hopefully you guys will as well. This is the sort of dream candle I mean. This one is one that I made, and I've carved it a little bit, and then it started to sort of flake. So then I was using just the wax pen over the top. There's a bunch of different dream staves in like carved into this one, and also some staves for sleep. This is one candle that I use. I anoint it with yarrow oil. I anoint myself with yarrow oil. Can't speak. And then I light it a few hours before bed. Sometimes I'll burn some blueberry leaves as well if I have some to hand. But if not, like I've had great results with just a white candle with these staves inscribed on. Prick your finger, smear a bit of blood to redden the staves. You don't need to do this for every single stave. I found that just one little prick of the finger is enough for the whole candle. Do that before you before you put the oil on it. Otherwise, you might get oil in your wound, so that's probably not good. But yeah, this is a really I love using candles and dream magic like this because it really, even just to look at it, it helps. Like I feel like the aesthetic of it helps get you into the headspace to be doing dream magic and receiving these answers you're asking for, really. So that's from that manuscript. The next one is LBS 2413. I think it's 24138VO is the full one. I have all the links, so I'll show this later to you guys. But yeah, this one comes from the 1800s. It's another one that's used for discovering identities of a thief by bringing them to you in a vision. But you don't. It's not just for thieves, in my experience. I've used this over the 6 nights that you're supposed to consecutively work it, to have answers to plenty of things. This is a great stave to use for divination. I've asked about like who's going to like for gossip stuff of like who's going to stay together, who's got secrets, whatever, like that sort of thing, and I've had good experience. Sorry, positive results is what I mean when I'm saying good experience. So I had positive results quite often. I've used this one to ask for certain spirits to come to me in dreams and show me things, or identify themselves as well. That's quite useful. When you're maybe feeling the sort of presence of something that you've maybe called, or maybe not even intentionally called, and you feel like there's a spirit around you that wants to work with you. Sometimes dream divination is a really good way to sort of help ask them out loud. If you feel some presence with you, be like, okay, come to me in a dream and show me yourself. This stave has really helped with that, so that's cool. But yeah, I would draw it on parchment and then redden it with blood, and then place it under your pillow before you go to bed. And then as it's used over 6 nights, I would do one little prick. Doesn't necessarily, I mean, you run out of fingers after a while, but don't have to be fingers, but you just yeah, one little drip of blood is enough each night. But there is alternatives. You don't have to use blood, so I'll talk about those in a bit. But yeah, so like I suggest, this can be worked to bring you other nocturnal visions. So it's the thing of asking for what's going to happen to be revealed to you, and then you're going to see it. It's not so strict to thief identity. But I feel like in the past in Iceland, that was probably the thing that people worried about the most. Even though nowadays Iceland is a very safe country and people don't really steal anything, apart from bikes every now and again. So people maybe don't need this as much now, but probably in the past. And these last two, these are two of mine. The top one, it's these 4 like lumped together, and then the bottom one I've had more positive experience with, like on a, like working into a candle, but also using it as one of these staves to have on me when I then ask, like, okay, I want to receive a dream of this, or I want to know specifically what's going to happen. Whereas the top one, yeah, like I put on a candle, use with some lunar oil. This just sort of helps with general stuff, like general dream stuff. It's not so strict to sorry, mute this person who's come in. Not so strict to asking for things. It's just if you wanna have some fun dreams, then try this one. Maybe also make an ointment from mugwort and yarrow and rub it on your palms and soles of your feet before you go to bed. And then carry this stave with you on a piece of paper or on a candle that's next to your bed, and burn it before sleep. These two things together work quite well in general, and it's like a lot easier, I feel like, for me to, if I've made this ointment before and it's going to last for like, I don't know, months, then this is a lot easier for me to just use this ointment and then have a candle with this normally, like if it's a small like pillar candle as well, it's quite fun because then if you mark out like the 4 corners of it, and then you've got one of these 4 symbols on each thing, so it looks quite nice. I should have put a picture of that on here actually, but I'll put one on Facebook, on Instagram or something. But yeah, I redden these ones with blood, even if it's this 4, one on each sort of corner of a candle. I wouldn't use 4 drops of blood. I would just use 1. That's enough. And then yeah, they also work. They also work well on pouches. I try and experiment as much as I can with these things. Like obviously you fall asleep every night, so like there's plenty of times where you can have an entire week's worth of experiments of like, oh, did this work? Did this work? Keeping a dream journal is really useful if you want to get a bit deeper into a neuromancy, because I know for sure, like I wake up and after like 10 minutes, I'm like, nope, it's gone. I have no idea what that was. But if I wake up and I know I'm going to write this first thing, I wake up and I start writing, and then it sticks because I'm still, it's like I'm still a bit in there in my head. So then I'm able to write down a bit more like, this happened, this happened, this happened. Here's this symbolism. Here's this thing that maybe was very literal in the dream. So yeah, there's fun ways to make the most of our sleep that we have every day, or we should be having every day. But yeah, working with specific plant spirits, if you want to, as a more sort of general thing, if you want to work with, like, have a connection with a specific plant spirit that you work with for this, that might be a really good way to help with dream magic in general. Mugwort is brilliant. I don't want to say gendered, like genders for plants so much, but mugwort, at least for me, most often appears, at least in my mind's eye, as like a, I guess, yeah, sort of middle-aged woman, often with like olive skin, and wearing like a flowy sort of green dress, which is interesting because then other Artemisia species like wormwood, which is like a cousin of mugwort, normally appears to me as like a sort of like more like a more elderly, I guess, sort of like Sicilian looking lady with the graying hair, like up in a bun, and she's wearing like a similar green dress. It's interesting. I don't like, for me, it's like a spirit to spirit, gender, whatever, like doesn't matter. It doesn't look at that the way that we look at that. So whatever it appears to you as, I would, yeah, I'd work with that more. I wouldn't worry about trying to have a fixed image of like mugwort's supposed to look like this. Like, no, mugwort can look like anything mugwort wants to look like. But yeah, if you want to get a bit more into working with specific spirits, then I would say try to establish a good relationship with mugwort, maybe a specific plant if you have a plant in your area. Otherwise, then you could try the thing of generally just working with the sort of overarching spirit of the plant species itself, which is as simple as just making some tea and then saying to it, okay, I want to work with you as a plant spirit, and I want to work with the sort of head of the hierarchy of plant spirits that you are connected to simply by being a part of the species that you are. And yeah, you drink the tea with the mugwort, which is very bitter, so it's not really for everyone. Drink that, and then say this as you're drinking the tea, you're sitting and having a conversation with this spirit as you're engaging with it, or maybe if you're holding it in your hands, things like this. There's so many different ways to work with spirit communication, but that's not what this class is about. So I'll keep it on track. I'm sorry. Blueberry and meadowsweet, like as I was saying before, it's probably two of the more readily available. People in the southern hemisphere, I'm not 100%. I don't think actually there's anyone at the moment watching this that's in the southern hemisphere. But if somebody in future is watching this from Australia, maybe, I'm pretty sure blueberries are grown in Australia, so you should be able to find blueberry leaves. Meadowsweet probably also. I know quite a lot of people in Australia like the European plants, so maybe that's the thing. But yeah, one of the last things that I want to talk about is the svefnthor. These are used for sleep. Typically, like the name of this comes from the sagas and comes from stories where you had this as like a bit of malefic magic, where you would carve this into someone's property or into a candle, or maybe on some skin or something, and use it as a sort of like the hand of glory was used in, or supposedly used in Europe, where you would make this magical object and it would put everyone in the house, put to sleep, so you could go in and steal stuff. There's some stories where this sort of, it's not clear in the old, like the old stuff, whether this was some object or this was something that's not even a stave. But there's a lot of quite a few staves that are named this, so it's like maybe this was a symbol, maybe this was something else. It's like the same with the Icelandic of like, was this an actual helmet or was this like a symbol that people would wear on their brow and that's it? But yeah, you can utilize these for sleep, for yourself, which if you're looking specifically at the folklore, you would think maybe that's not the right way to do it. But they can help you sleep deeply, and help you have like unbroken sleep, that then makes dream divination a lot more easy and possibly effective, because you're not being disturbed by anything that's putting your mind somewhere else. So it's just another one of these layers of things where you can think of like, okay, what is to do dream magic? Like, what do I need? I need to be able to sleep well. I need to, maybe have had some sort of plant help me with its virtues, or do stuff in the right time, or just use as many sort of steps as you get yourself into a mindset that's ideal for it. Like, use as many steps as you can to really sort of round out your spell work and make things as effective as possible. So you can use these two. But I would put I'd put a mix of dream staves and sleep staves on candles sometimes, just so I'm getting everything out of all of them. I would redden them separately, because they're two separate entities essentially. I don't mean that as an entity like a spirit. I mean like a being of its own. Being is something that's distinct to itself. So yeah, but yeah, I would put them on candles and redden them with blood, and it's good enough. So for the sources for this, these links, I'll put them in the email as well. But these three manuscripts, they're available. They're full of staves, especially so the Huld manuscript. There are translations of this, so maybe it's good for you guys to go through the original manuscript and have a look, and then find, there's plenty of translations online that you can find. I think even if you Google Huld manuscript PDF, you can find a PDF of it where it's been translated. And then LBS 5472, there's 1, 2, what is it, 6, or maybe even 7 volumes. Number 1, 2, 3, 4 has the most staves. These 4 have the most staves in. They're pretty simply labeled as well. So you can just write out these words in Google Translate, and you'll get pretty good translations of them, although I definitely would be checking elsewhere. And if people want help translating stuff, or you find a stave and you're like, oh, I don't know what this says, then like I will help. I'm more than happy to help. I know that it's incredibly niche Icelandic, which already Icelandic is niche as a language. So like, I don't know a huge amount of Icelanders who would know like off the bat, like, oh, that's this, and this word within this context means something different because it's like an old way of saying this thing. Like that's not super common knowledge. So if I can help, then I will. Um, but yeah, so I want to say thank you. I will do some questions if people have questions before I finish this. I can see there's one chat. Okay, yeah, blueberries and chili, that's perfect. But yeah, so I'll have the chat open. If anyone wants to ask any questions, or if anyone has any anything they want to say, then feel free to write in the chat now. But yeah, okay, here we go. Traditional chant over to activate just any of the dream staves, or a specific one. Okay, yeah. Then I mean, I like. I'm not sure. Like, typically, I would just say like, I want this to do this thing, and you can do it in English, and it will be a lot more effective, for sure, than Icelandic, because you're doing the magic, and it's your language, or whatever language is your first language. But yeah, you could. I mean, for simple stuff like, I don't know, you could say like, yeah, I wrist, or I carve, like, yeah, so like, yeah, like I wrist this stave to help me dream, or to show me what I need to see. I'll put some stuff into words. If you want to message me when you get the email after this class, if you send me a message, and then I can put some things into, or try and put some sentences together that feel right, if you want. Yeah. Yeah. Does anyone else have any questions before we finish? Nice. Okay. Yeah. So I'll put together a chant, and then put it in a follow-up email. And yeah, once I'm not sure how long on this, because my Wi-Fi here is a bit not amazing. I'm not sure how long it's going to take for this class to upload, because I'll have to wait for it to convert after it's finished recording, and then upload. So it might take a while, but yeah, I'll send the email out as quickly as I can. I'm just going to stop recording now, if I can.